Hello, everyone. Are you stressed, depressed, and can't rest? Well, join us over at the Breakthrough Podcast, where you can get yourself a shot of Jesus to wake you up, to pick you up when you're feeling down. I'm here today with, actually, I'm the guest. She's not my guest. I am the guest, Heather Bollinger, who I've been probably being extremely annoying to get this podcast going for a while, a very long while. We're here at the Vineyard Community Church in Greenwood, and we've served on the worship team together. And even when we're not serving together, we're just down here doing our weekly, every Sunday morning Bible study. And every time, it gets around to Heather, everybody says their piece, but every time it gets around to Heather, like the whole conversation just elevates. So every time she spoke, I'm like, lady, get a podcast. And she was like, whatever. No. So actually, getting into that, Heather, I'm number one, very glad that we're doing this. Like, I'm excited. You've seen me around here. I'm as big as I am. I'm just walking around all giddy and stuff. Because this is very exciting for me, because I know just from hearing you, and on a completely serious note, just from hearing you speak and just hearing your testimony and the way that you look at things, how strong you are and how strong your faith is. And I think that's why I said it in a joking fashion, but that's why I said it, was because I really felt that, that light that is in you and that you've cultivated, that light of, obviously of God, and just relying on Jesus would help any and everyone, so that's why I was really, really, really pushing this podcast, and we're here. It's been a year and a half of me being annoying, but for everyone listening, would you mind just kind of giving a little bit of background as to why you decided to do this, or, why you let me peer pressure you into it?
Well, I definitely say that I would say accountability rather than peer pressure, because, God speaks through the people around you when he wants you to do something. And he had been speaking to me for a while, and I wasn't listening, so he finally had an audible voice tell me to get moving on this.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Jesus. All right.
But it's actually kind of funny, because I used to have a problem with communication and speaking and socializing, and I was more of the open mouth, insert foot kind of person when I was growing up. But life happens, and then God gives you a platform. And my life happened, and I had my heartache, like everyone has, and my betrayals, and becoming a single mom in my early 30s. And just it was really unexpected, and everything that went along with that, it was pretty difficult. And I just remember about a year after my ex-husband left, that my pastor from my church had asked me to speak about where I had seen God at work in my life. And he only gave me 5 minutes. That's all I had, was 5 minutes, but I accepted the invitation. And when I accepted the invitation, I went up there. I just broke out with everything that God had on my heart. And from the moment I opened my mouth, I knew that's where I was supposed to be, that I was supposed to be speaking to people and letting people know how good God is, and that it doesn't matter what they've been through, that he can get them through it all, and they don't need to be afraid of what they're in or what's coming or what they've been through in the past.
All right. See that? I was just drawn in to that story now. That's why I was saying earlier when you were telling me about it, like, well, let's wait. Let's put a pin on it, because I feel myself just kind of getting drawn into that story. So we'll save that raw energy for everybody. So you mentioned before, and I know you had recently entitled this first session as No Fear. Would you like to kind of go into exactly what that looks like for you, or what that has been like for you, just or any words of encouragement? Do your head the thing, just get into it. Well,
For me, when my ex left, I was pregnant with our youngest child, and our house was foreclosing. And I was a stay-at-home mom, so I didn't have any kind of income. And so I was looking at a lot of reasons to be afraid. And I knew enough about God to know that the only way I was going to get through it was with Him. And so I just put everything into Him. I started listening to Caleb to help me just have something positive in my head. And if I'd wake up in the middle of the night, I'd be reading Psalms or Proverbs to get something good into me. Because, you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about whatever you're going through. In my case, it was my divorce and everything that was involved in that. And where's my husband? What's he doing? And why am I not good enough? And just all those doubts that come into your head when you're waking up in the middle of the night. And how am I going to do this? How's this going to happen? How am I going to forgive this? How am I going to be a single mom? I hadn't been single since I was 14. And that's when my ex-husband and I started dating. And so I had no idea how to address the adult world, how to interact with the adult world. I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't really have a lot of connections either. So I had been very isolated throughout my previous marriage and throughout that marriage. And so I didn't have a lot of friends. My family was all in other states, and I was connected to my church, but I wasn't deeply connected to my church yet. And so it was a very, very lonely, very scary time. And I just hung on to God. I just clung to Him.
That was your main support system at that time.
Yep, that was my main support system. And then through Him, He connected me with people. Through Him, He opened up doors. Through Him, He provided me resources. And even things that seemed to be absolutely horrible in the moment. Like one thing was that in the middle of my divorce, I somehow got reported to CPS. And I'm going, what's going on? How could I have been reported to CPS? I love my kids. I'm not abusing them. How did this happen?
Right.
But actually what happened, the blessing in that was that when I was reported and they came in, they evaluated the situation, realized that there was nothing going on. But they also saw that I was pretty desperate. And I didn't know how I was going to take care of my kids. I didn't know what was going to be happening once the house foreclosed. And so they connected me with an organization that basically came in weekly for the first year and bi-weekly for the second year and once a month for the third year to help coach me through what I was going through. And it was tremendously helpful. So I saw this horrible thing. How could I have possibly been reported to CPS? And God was saying, no, this is actually going to be an avenue that I'm going to use in order to help you through this time because you don't know what you're doing, and I know you don't know what you're doing.
It's just like God, isn't He? I mean, just in the midst of all that trouble and all that, all of our trials and tribulations, like there's an avenue in which He's working for us and in and through us that obviously we don't understand because we just don't understand at the time. It's hard to see, past all the haze and the fog of just the troubles of everyday life. But even still, like in that moment, you're working towards that avenue of I don't know, that good that God's working towards and through you and in your life. And it's, I don't know, it's awesome.
It's like a puzzle. I mean, I see a puzzle because for us, we can see one puzzle piece, but God can see the entire picture that's being formed in the puzzle. And so if we can trust the hand that's putting the puzzle together, then someday we are going to see the same picture that He sees.
And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, we had to do this podcast. She just made puzzles cool.
Yeah, they are pretty cool.
Right, yes. All the puzzle lovers. Puzzles are great. Puzzles are great. And back to you.
But I remember when I was going through my divorce and all that heartache and just feeling like someone had just reached into my chest and just ripped out my heart. That one thing that I had asked God is that if he was going to allow me to go through this pain, and I never said that he caused it because I know it wasn't him that caused it, but if he was going to allow me to go through this pain, I asked him to use it. Don't let the pain be in vain, but actually use it for something better, something beyond myself. And it was after that that he gave me my voice. And from that point, he has been using my story to help individually, one-on-one, speaking engagements, and then finally pushing me to this podcast. First, from him directly saying, maybe you should, do a podcast. Then when I wasn't listening to him, bringing in your voice. And,
yes. God brought a 6'3" megaphone to your ear. Podcast. Hey, do a podcast. Like every week. It was obnoxious, y'all. It was obnoxious. I will be the first.
I thought it was awesome. It was really encouraging, and it made me think, especially having it be continuous and being repetitive. It made me really stop and think about. He gave me a voice, and I've been wanting to use that voice, and he gave me a story. He's done so much in my life, and he's been so good and so merciful, and he's met me where I'm at time and time again when I was messing up. And he was meeting me where I was at when I was having difficulty forgiving, when I was having difficulty getting through, when I needed provision, when I needed help, when I needed comfort, when I needed all of those things, when I was feeling completely wrecked. He was picking up the pieces. And to have that and not be able to tell people about how good he is just, it's like a slow torture. And I just knew that I needed to let people know. I needed to be able to tell people and to encourage people. And that's my heart, is to encourage people. My heart is to let people know through my story and through the stories of those that come around me, and just the words that God gives me, that they don't have to worry about whatever it is that they're going through. And so if I'm speaking to everyone out there who is hearing this message, that is the core of this first podcast, is to let you know that you do not have to be afraid, that God is good in all circumstances, even when we cannot see the full picture, even when all we can see is a puzzle piece, that he can see the entire picture. And he is love. And we are told in 1 John chapter 4 that there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out all fear, and God is perfect love. And we can hold on to that, and we can remember that whatever we're going through, he's already got a plan. He's already got a purpose for it. And he's already moving where we can't see. He is moving. And that his love goes beyond anything that we can see or anything that we can even fully understand. His love transcends our situation. It goes through everything. It doesn't just touch it. It moves it. It blows it up. And it turns it into something beyond anything that we could have ever imagined. So we do not have to be afraid. And if you look at 1 John 4, and you're looking at where it says that the one who fears is not made perfect in love. I was looking into that just earlier today to just look at the original language of what fear means. And when you're talking about fear in that sense, the one who fears is not perfected in love. It's talking about being so terrified that you run. It's not talking about whether or not you feel fear. because we all feel fear at times. But whether or not we allow that fear to grip us to the point where we are running from what God has placed before us, that is what he's talking about, that there is no fear in love. In his perfect love, we don't have to run. We don't have to hide. We can face whatever is in front of us. We can face whatever it is that we're going through because he has a plan and he has a way to get us through. And he tells us that he restores the years the locusts have eaten and that he will give us a double recompense for our former shame. So he will pay us twice everything that has been taken from us, all of the things that we've been through, everything that we are ashamed of in our past, whether it's something that somebody has done to us or something that we have done to somebody else or something that we have done to ourselves. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that God has already decided and he has already promised that he is going to come through and he is going to restore everything. And he is going to give us the joy that we have been missing, that he is going to give us the peace and give us the comfort and give us the love that we have been lacking. It is all going to come from him first. And then after it comes from him, then it's going to come from everything around us. And before we know it, everything that we see is going to be filled and permeated with his love. And then he's going to use us to go out and love others. And that is what we are here for, to help others not be afraid of what they're going through. And then when God changes their lives, when God changes their hearts, when they realize that they've been rescued from their circumstances before they're ever actually rescued from their circumstances. And I don't know if that makes sense to everyone, but basically what it looks like to me is when I was praying for him to change my circumstances, he was working in my heart. And he was showing me who I am in him and my identity and how much he loves me. And he brought me to a place where I was at peace in the middle of my circumstances. My circumstances had not changed, and I was at peace. And I felt his joy, and I knew that he was working, and I was okay with it. So he delivered me from wanting my circumstances to change. And then once I was okay where I was at, then my circumstances changed. And that's what he can do for everyone. He can deliver you where you're at. Even if your circumstances aren't changing in the moment, he can still deliver you. And then after he delivers you from the fear of your circumstances, then he changes your circumstances. And then he uses you, because that's what we're here for. That's why we're on this earth. We are on this earth to be used, to be a light to others. So if you're not ready to be a light yet, that's fine. That's fine. God meets us where we're at. He babied me through so much. Oh my goodness. He babied me through so much because he knew that that's what I needed at the time. And then when I was ready, he gave me my platform. And that's what he's going to do for everyone else. He'll give them their platform at the right time and the right way after they know who he is and who they are in him.
All right. All right. Well, that is episode 1 of this very, very, oh man, I don't know what the word is that I would use to describe. So just real quick for everybody who clearly could not see that. Heather, did you see me at all?
Yeah, I saw you. I was trying to. I was trying to focus on the message, but I realized
I was doing too much. That's why I came like, okay, you need to calm down and just sit down. So for those who obviously, which is everyone, did not see what I just did, like as she started getting into it, you kind of just start feeling it when Heather really gets into it. So I got up. And y'all, I start feeling it. I start doing things that probably made no sense. I'm just punching the air like, yeah, son, yeah.
A little bit of a happy dance.
Yeah, a little bit of a happy dance. I went all the way across the room, sat down behind the couch. Didn't even sit on the couch. What sense does that make? Sat down behind the couch, stared over here while she gave her message, and then walked back over and said, okay, you need to calm down and sit down before you distract from just all of this. So finally sat down, and y'all heard what happened, and this is why, and I thank God that this was able to happen because this needed to happen. Just that right there is just, man. And I think that's something that everyone needs to know is just, and that's what I had to. Well, I mean, God rocked me. I can't say I had no choice because that makes it sound bad, but like God worked in my heart hardcore, and I actually had a discussion with a friend about this not too long ago. I actually tried so hard to distract myself because I didn't really know what was happening, before I started coming to the Vineyard, before I really truly gave my heart over to Him and just, changed certain ways and just things that I had, things that I did, and, just changed myself for the better. But I think it's important in what you said of He will meet you where you are. Like, people have this preconceived notion that in order to be considered a child of God, or in order to fit in with the people that that go to church, I need to clean up my act. If God, was worried about you cleaning up your act, He wouldn't have to reach into anyone's heart. You know what I mean?
Amen.
Like, and that's that. I feel that 110% because I was not in contact with anyone outside of my family. Who I grew up in a very religious household, and it was people that made me step back from God. And I realized that as I'm a truck driver, so I had a lot of time to think. So I realized that after I started coming to God, that like I let people deter me, and I think that's the case for a lot of others. Like it's hurts, it's heartaches that inflicted by others that people not use, but they just kind of direct that towards God. And I did that for the longest time. Like if you'd have known me 5 years ago, it's a completely different Lorray, But it's just that's why I resonated, strongly with you saying that God will meet you where you are, because He met me when I had no contact outside from my family with people who truly believed I was in my own little bubble, my own little cloud. I was living in my own little way, and God was working in my heart and my mind and my soul, and just things that I started to notice things. And I realized after taking the growth track here that like when you see something or when you hear something and it's like it's written in your heart, that's God talking to you. And that happened a lot before I realized what was actually happening. And it was just kind of like, I don't know. And I know where I was when this began to happen. And it was such a 180 that for a second, and I'm not saying that it caused any issues, but for a second, because of how quickly it happened, because of how hard it was, like me hitting a brick wall of, in terms of submission to God, that it, may have made my relationships a little rocky, because I'm an internal processor. So while all this was going on, I said nothing to no one, and I just kind of retreated in myself. And then I came out like, hey, so I feel like I've been living wrong. So, yeah, no more of this, no more of that. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it kind of caused a ripple in a lot of my relationships. But, I'd rather stand with God and be judged by the world than stand with the world and be judged by God, right?
Amen.
So,
Amen.
But so I just think that's really important, and I've talked way too much. I
Oh,
apologize.
no. No, I'm you're talking about God meeting us where we're at, and how that resonated with you. And I think it's important to repeat it, that God meets us where we are at. We don't have to change who we are in order to meet God. And to give a good example, when He was meeting me where I was at, I was swearing at Him. So that kind of gives you an idea of, I didn't scare Him off. Right. He didn't. I didn't say these words. I mean, I'm going through this heartache, and granted, I'd known about God in the past, and I was already a Christian. But see, even then, I'm already a Christian. I'm swearing at God, and I'm telling Him all the horrible things I'm thinking about my, at the time, soon-to-be ex-husband, and that was pretty graphic, to say the least. And
this is rated G for God. So.
Oh yes, rated G for God. But yeah, I had to know that I could just be honest with where I was at, and that it wasn't going to scare God off.
Yeah.
And that is so important for people to know, is that you can't scare God away. No matter what you tell Him, no matter what confessions you make, no matter what your language sounds like, He already knows what you're going to say before it comes out of your mouth. So, and he already preordained a relationship with you before the beginning of time. So he's not sitting here thinking, oh my gosh.
What did I get myself into?
If I had known you were going to say that, if I had known you were going to do that, I never would have asked you to come into a relationship with me.
Right.
So if you are being called now, if you're not in a relationship with God now, then now's the time to start. Because he is the one that no matter what you say, no matter what you do, no matter what you have done in the past or what has been done to you, he already knows, and he's still saying he wants to be in a relationship with you. So you can do that. You can do that now at this moment. And all you have to do is just lift yourself up to him. And what that looks like is simply just saying, God, I realize that I need you in my life. And I'm asking you to come to change me, to change my heart. I accept you, and I thank you for accepting me the way I am. I'm asking for your salvation, and I'm asking for you to just do what your word promises. Change my life. Restore the years the locusts have eaten. Repay me twice everything that's been taken. And I surrender to you, and I will continue to do that. And I would say this too. One thing that I learned is surrender is a process.
Yes.
So one thing that God brought to my attention earlier on is there's a scripture in the Bible that Jesus is talking to a man who is asking for a healing, and he says, be it unto you as you believe. And the man says, Lord, I believe. Help me in my unbelief. And he brought that scripture back to me, and he said, okay, just as that man said that about belief, I want you to say that about surrender. So that's what we can do right now and every day. Is just say, Lord, I surrender. Help me in my resistance.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Heather. I'm looking forward to continuing this, and for everyone who's listening, I hope you're as rocked by that as I am and have been for the last year and a half. Like I said, I look forward to bringing you guys more, and I want to talk more with you, but we got to save it. So to everyone who's listening, I, again, hope this rocked you, and good night or good morning or good afternoon. Yeah. So for everyone who is listening to this podcast today, we hope that this has blessed you, and we encourage you to take a step, trust God, and live a life with no fear.